Tape my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you just let me eat my weight in glee? Hush.
Welcome, World Ablaze listeners. And today I have a few things that you will find of interest, at least entertaining. One of them not so entertaining. One of them about a group of people of similar faith trying to take over the United States from within using U.S. laws against ourselves to stake claim on the land, the sovereign soil of the United States of America. I'll get to that in just a bit. But first, let me ask the question here. Actually, before I ask that question, no, you know what? Let me just ask. I'm going to ask this question. For a group of people, now, not talking about what I'm going to talk about later. I don't want to give that one away. I'll get there. But for a group of people, conservatives, let's say, Republicans, MAGA, whatever, that are strongly in support of having identification to vote, to prove yourself, to be able to say that you are a United States citizen before you can cast a vote for whoever it is that would be president, a group that vehemently supports being able to know that you are legally here in this country and that the rights that you are trying to vote for, that you want to take advantage of, that you are a citizen of this country so that you can do so, that you are also a legal resident to take advantage of other things that are offered in this country. See, this group, MAGA, Republicans, conservatives, they're all slightly different. The only thing they have in common really is they lean right, not left. Some may say that one of those groups is extreme right, but regardless, they all advocate for identification, for proof of self to vote. Yet, what I can't get my head around, what's been all over social media lately, is they're all kicking, screaming, and crying over having to have a real ID. A real ID that is supposed to, make your identification more secure. It has stricter standards on how you're able to identify yourself. And then once you have this real ID, it literally represents that, yes, you are who you say you are. But yet these same people in these groups, conservatives, Republicans, MAGAs, don't want a real ID. It is suddenly government overreach. I don't understand. Government overreach to get a real ID. It's an inconvenience to get a real ID. I mean, seriously? What? Oh, you're complaining now that you need a real ID to board a plane? Which I get for domestic travel. I mean, does it really matter? Well, kind of, because planes have been used as weapons by terrorists, by nefarious people. It's a dangerous thing. Think about it. A plane loaded with a bunch of people in the sky that, if taken over, can literally just be directed where they want it to go and crash into things. Definitely causes maximum damage wherever it lands. And why is this of concern? Well, remember 9/11? Now, we can argue whether or not that was our own government who started 9/11 and intentionally attacked our own Twin Towers. We can go down that rabbit hole if you want. Sure, we could bring up all the conspiracies, talk about what Alex Jones uncovered, et cetera, architects, engineers. I've seen the videos. Trust me, I know the information. But is this what this is about? Well, the Real ID came about because of those attacks. The attack on 9/11 against our Twin Towers, our people in New York on our own soil by terrorists. Well, that's the story. Story they sold, the story that Bush pushed. And we can't deny that the event didn't happen, but I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theories that surround that event. Regardless, after that, the Real ID became a concern. After that, it was, hey, how do we really know these people are who they say they are? And where that come about? Well, if you remember, whoever was alive then to experience it remembers. For those who weren't, The attackers literally got their pilot's licenses at a school, at least one of them I remember, in Florida. It was really weird how they were going about it. Even the instructor was like, yeah, they kept saying they weren't really too concerned with learning how to land. They just wanted to know how to fly it. Like, while it's in the air. How do I take control of this thing? Like, if I have control of this plane and I'm in the air, how do I keep it going? But they weren't concerned about landing. Landing out, well, we don't need to know that. I mean, look, we're going to hit the ground eventually, whatever, right? So, anyway, what I'm getting at is these people and the reports surrounding the two pilots, the two people who got their licenses under very suspicious conditions, were kind of ignored. It was brushed under the rug. Even the chatter going around in the intel community was ignored about it. But again, that's another story. But the reality is, if we were able to verify these individuals, easily identify them by trusting the identification being presented, then maybe a lot of this could have been avoided. So people are making the case that this real ID, again, is government overreach. They're like, wow, they're going to put a pictorial system, a national pictorial system, basically that is tied to who you are. They're going to have everyone's pictures in this giant database. They're going to collect this information about you in this database. And what's crazy is for anyone who travels, anyone who flies, and you use a passport, for you to get that passport, you have to prove who you are. And if you have a passport, they have your information in the system already. Oh, and by the way, if we want to keep going down this little rabbit hole of whether or not they have your information, I can myself personally, with certain software and things that I have, can scrape the internet, find your social media accounts, and record all the information about you on your social media accounts, all the way down to your posts, analyze it, throw it into AI, and be like, this is who you are. This is what you said. This is representative of your personality. And besides social media, which we all give away willy-nilly, by the way, when you sign up for these accounts, you're giving them information. When you sign up for a subscription, let's just say Netflix or Hulu or Disney, you're giving away your information. Look, the data mining of your personal information and who you are began a long time ago, and we all willingly gave it. There's nothing in the system that they don't have on you already. And you're concerned about a picture they already have when you got your driver's license. I mean, if you went to the DMV, you had to take a picture to put on that license. So the argument is, well, if we already have a driver's license, why do we have to go out of our way to get a real ID? This is a nefarious thing. Why is the government overreaching? Why are they making us do this? I'll get to that. But first, it's been a while. So what I'm going to do is crack a damn beer because I've had, let's say, a long couple of weeks. And that's a beautiful sound. And for all those who are working, not working, don't want to work, guess what I'm going to do? Here's a big cheers to you. And I'm going to take a sip. Amazing. Today I'm drinking a North Coast Brewing Company beer, Scrimshaw. Really tasty beer. Not too heavy, not too light. Great little beer. And again, I haven't cracked a beer, toasted any of you with a champagne in a while. But today just felt like the day. So there you go. So getting back to the story here. Here is Department of Homeland Security Director Kristi Noem.
Hi, I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. If you plan on traveling, we need your help to prevent delays and to prove your identity. Get a real ID. Starting May 7th, you will need a real ID to travel by air or to visit federal buildings in the United States. These IDs keep our country safe because they help prevent fraud and they enhance security. Please do your part to protect our country. Go today and don't delay. To learn more, go to dhs.gov/real-ID. Thank you.
And so in response to that, Sarah Palin. Remember Sarah Palin? Yep. Previous governor of Alaska, 2008 vice presidential candidate, still current politician. This is her response to Kristi Noem. Her response was, or what? Evidently, existing ID requirements for American citizens just aren't adequate now. So Big Brother is forcing us through more hoops for the right to travel within our own country. Other administrations delayed this newfangled burdensome Real ID requirement. Are you curious why its implementation is imperative now? And who came up with this? Well, fair argument, I guess, Sarah. But as you said, it's been delayed. And this was actually voted on, just so everyone knows. I want to clear the air. They think that Kristi Noem just came up with this, that the Trump administration just said, look, real IDs are happening. It has been said that real IDs were going into effect for a few years, quite a few years. And in fact, this whole thing, this real ID, this whole real ID thing here was voted on by Congress in 2005, 20 years ago. Yet now everyone is painting the Trump administration and Kristi Noem as the enemy, as if they came up with this thing suddenly, and how it just coincidentally aligns with other things that are going on in the world right now and the Trump agenda. And look, I don't say this often, and I hope I'm not speaking to one of you who is listening right now. And I do appreciate all my listeners. But if you think that this was a sudden plot, a sudden agenda put together by Trump, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. You're an idiot. It's either that or you just haven't been paying attention. There have been signs posted everywhere about this real ID going into effect for a long time. In fact, it was supposed to happen, when was it? A few years ago, roughly on October something, I forget. But I remember because I went to go get mine because I was like, whoops, there's a deadline. I better go get mine because I flew a lot at the time. I did have to do a lot that required me to be on the road. My wife and I were planning many trips at the time, and hey, just made sense. And it was just as simple as me renewing my driver's license, which is where I actually got it done. Your driver's license you just get verified. It's not a very demanding process, by the way. And again, this was passed and signed into law in 2005. They started implementing the Real ID in 2008. Many people have it and probably don't even realize it. But now's the time to cry. Now's the time to kick and scream. Okay, fine. So let's go to the Real ID website, dhs.gov/Real ID, blah, blah, blah. Look, do a Google search, you'll find it. So according to DHS on the Real ID website, I'm going to read the about. So about Real ID, the Real ID Act passed by Congress in 2005, just as I discussed, enacted the 9/11 Commission's recommendation that the federal government set standards for the issuance of sources of identification such as driver's licenses and identification cards. The Act and implementing regulations establish minimum security standards for license issuance and production and prohibit federal agencies from accepting for certain official purpose non-compliant driver's licenses and identification cards. The official purposes covered by the Act and regulations are accessing certain federal facilities, boarding federally regulated commercial aircraft, and entering nuclear power plants. So far, sounds reasonable, right? I mean, standards for the issuance of sources of identification, kind of important, I would think. Something that I'll read later here in this episode about, but definitely remember that. Standards for issuance of sources of identification. Okay. I'm going to keep reading. It says, secure driver's licenses and identification documents are vital component of our national security framework. I agree to that. It goes on to read again. DHS TSA is committed to enforcing the Real ID Act. Therefore, beginning May 7th, 2025, anyone 18 years and older that plans to fly domestically or visit certain federal facilities will need a Real ID or another acceptable form of identification. So, which would be a passport, by the way. The Act's prohibitions do not affect other uses of a driver's license or identification cards unrelated to official purposes as defined in the Act. All right. So does it sound like we should be opposed to why we need a real ID? Because stricter standards on proving who you are sounds like a good thing to me, honestly. I mean, do we just want anybody entering a nuclear power plant? Which, by the way, you can't anyway unless you're vetted. But regardless, just saying. Yet, still, people are against it. There are people who are against it. And surprisingly, the MAGA crowd, the conservative crowd, the Republicans are against proving who you are. My mind is twisted, right? I'm not understanding. So prove who you are to vote, but not if you need to travel on a federally regulated commercial aircraft or enter certain federally regulated buildings and nuclear power plants and etc. But I think this is where a lot of this stems from, though. Again, I'm a little. I've always said I lean right. I'm not a leftist whatsoever. So I'm more down the center, but I definitely lean right. And I will say that I agree in having ID to vote. And if I need ID to vote because I want to make sure and verify who the hell you are, I definitely think a real ID is a good idea. But Ron Paul has been against this. Ron Paul, way back and literally around 20 years ago, he made this speech in Congress.
Recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the rule. I rise also in support of the Sessions Amendment, but I also would like to take this time to make a few comments about why I will be voting against the bill. With the utmost sincerity and the deep conviction, I am quite confident that this bill, if you vote for it, you will be voting for a national ID card. And I know some will argue against that, and they say this is voluntary, but it really can't be voluntary. If a state opts out, nobody's going to accept their driver's license. So this is not voluntary. Matter of fact, even the House Republican Conference, who sent a statement around and some points about this bill, said the federal government should set standards for the issuance of birth certificates and sources of identification such as driver's licenses. This is nationalization of all identification. It will be the introduction of the notion that we will be carrying our papers.
Okay, so Ron Paul makes an argument against because he believes, as he stated, this is enforcing a national ID. And what he's trying to do is tie this decision to being under the thumb of a communist government where everything about you is tied to this national ID, all the way down to your social credit score, just as what they do in China. And without this national ID, you get absolutely nothing. They restrict your rights. They restrict your rights to what you can purchase, where you can go, if you can go to school, if you can go to work, if you can own a car. I mean, you name it. There's so much that they tie to this national ID that Ron Paul's alluding to in a communist nation such as China or any authoritarian regime or authoritarian government. I mean, that this is what he fears. He fears that this is what's happening. I'm not quite sure that's it, but as he stated, and as it has been, as I had read from the DHS website themselves as to why they're doing this, because of stricter standards in identifying yourself, right? Here's one of the reasons. Let me just say this, that previously, just a driver's license, right? Acceptable form of identification. Very easy to fake. Very easy to fake. They were being given out to illegal immigrants and other nefarious actors by the thousands. And I don't have to dive too deep into this. Look, you do a Google search, you will find so many articles that just pop up. In fact, I'm going to read a few of the headlines from these articles and the dates. Here's one from May 2nd of 2019 from NBC. It states that NBC 15 investigates how illegal immigrants get fake IDs. Okay. Lakeland Ledger, May 26, 2005. Fake IDs are common among illegal immigrants. Oh, here's a good one. This is from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. So your U.S. Customs and Border Patrol or Border Protection. This was released in July 27th, 2020. It goes on to read over 19,000. Hold on. Let me start that again. Over 19,000 fraudulent IDs seized by the CPB officers in Chicago. Interesting. Here's another one. Customs and Border Protection website. October 26, 2022. 2 shipments containing 4,420 counterfeit driver's license were found in Louisville, Kentucky. Interesting. Oh, here's a good one. California. Cal Matters website. Here we go. 2023, January 27, 2023. California gave 1 million undocumented immigrants licenses. Here's another one. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement website, January 24th, 2025. 2 charged in elaborate scheme to obtain, well, you guessed it, valid California driver's licenses. There's one more. NBC News. 2006. This was the year after Congress passed the bill and it was signed into law by President Bush. Fake immigration ID sellers unfazed by threats. It says as Congress struggles to reform laws and affects the nation's 11 million illegal immigrants, one question is how to crack down on fake IDs. These concerns were not new. The evidence of illegal identification schemes to give people who were illegal immigrants, and if they're in this country illegal, doesn't mean they're all bad people, but there are a lot of bad people that, well, they sneak in. So should we have stricter standards on how you are identified, on how you have to prove who you are in order to get documentation to prove who you are? Yeah, I think it's a very valid argument and a very valid request. A request that would help to ensure that we don't have or we stop the bad actors from entering the sovereign nation of the United States of America who intend to cause harm against its citizens and the great nation itself. Now, for my next topic, this is the topic that I said in the beginning of the episode that I was going to kick the can down the road, so to speak. Talking about a group of people that is going out of their way to establish their own city, their own community on sovereign soil in the United States, one that would be self-governed, self-managed, and has their own schools, hospitals. I mean, completely closed off from the rest of society, standing there on their own. And I am talking about Epic City, the Epic City project that has been going on in Texas. Now, you may or may not have heard about this, but this raises a real concern. A real concern because what's going on here has been slowly going on in Texas for, I believe, the last 12 years or so. It also speaks to what's been going on in New Jersey, where allegedly they're claiming it to be the new Palestinian capital. And they've even raised their own Palestinian flag over there in New Jersey. Not the entire state, by the way, but rather the city of Patterson, New Jersey. And here's a little article from the New York Post, just so you know that I'm not making this up. Patterson mayor calls New Jersey City capital of Palestine in the Ramadan kickoff remarks, and also calls it the 4th holiest city in the world. Hold on. This small city in New Jersey is being declared as the capital of Palestine, the 4th holiest city in the world? What? What are we talking about? what are we talking about? Well, it goes on to read, and here's a quote here. It says, "I'm not the one who said it, but I heard people say that Patterson is probably the fourth most halal or holiest city in the world. Jerusalem, Mecca, Medina, and Patterson, New Jersey." Okay then. Yeah. Let me go ahead and play this video. This is a video in which they explain Epic City. And on the back half of the video, they even explain how you could be an investor to help them, make this happen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, I'm sure many of you have heard of the amazing project that we're doing known as Epic Cities. We are, alhamdulillah, constructing an entire city half an hour from downtown Dallas, literally 30 minutes from our own Plano Masjid over here. It's going to be a city of over 1,000 people. Alhamdulillah, we launched this website last year and we sold the entire phase 1 within days. Because of the demand, we are now opening up Epic Ranches. Epic Ranches is an exclusive opportunity for those who want to be within minutes of Epic City, but also want larger plots. We have 2 Epic Ranches. Epic Ranches 1 begins with 1 acreage and goes up to 5 acreage. And Epic Ranches 2 has plots of ½ acre and also investment opportunities for those who want to build condominiums. Brothers and sisters, this is a limited time opportunity. It is an amazing time to invest for the future, not only in yourselves, but of your children after you. We are inshallah ta'ala going to change the entire da'wah scene by demonstrating to the world what it means to be a Muslim living in the West.
Yeah. We're going to show the entire world what it is to be a Muslim living in the West. To give a little bit more info on Epic City, it's roughly a 402-acre city, 1,000 people. They've also started an Epic City 2.0, which are developments in addition to this Epic City. What anchors Epic City is a giant mosque. There's more information here about this. Outside of having its own education system, its own hospital, its own university, obviously the mosque is in the center, as everything that has to do with Islam centers around the Islamic religion. And beyond that, you will have to, now I won't because I won't live there, and I don't even think this should be able to be built whatsoever on sovereign U.S. soil, but I'll get to that. But beyond that, there's kind of like an HOA fee that they're going to implement, city fees, etc., where 75% of those fees, whatever that's collected, whatever dollar amount it is, $1, $2, $50, $100, whatever it is, 75% of that goes to the mosque. So this is a city that intends to be self-governed, in which money goes back to feed the Islamic organizations, or in this case, whatever organization it is that is behind Epic City. So do we need to have concern? Well, I don't know. We're talking about a bunch of people who are willingly wanting to stay segregated, not integrate into U.S. culture and become part of the United States, but stand on their own land within the United States, creating their own city, which could also be argued, which would eventually be their own sovereign nation. Now, that last part I just made up myself, but kind of seems like where they're trying to go here with this whole Epic City development. Now, I have another clip here to play. This was from a show on Fox, the Will Cain Show, where he had a guest that was able to speak about this, and she gave her opinion. She herself is Muslim. And listen to what she has to say about this.
This is a story that I think is actually very complex, and then at the same time, very simple. The question is, not only can this be allowed under the United States Constitution, but should this be allowed? Should we have self-segregated communities centered around a faith, one like Islam?
So it's an enormous question. Will, it's a great pleasure to join you, and you're the legal scholar. But I will tell you what I see. First of all, 4.4 million Muslims are at home here in the United States. I'm one of them. We have unprecedented religious freedoms, unprecedented freedoms to proselytize, worship, and live as Muslims without restriction, almost unlike any other country in the world, including Muslim countries. So there's actually not a need for an enclave that is based on Muslim identity, and that is not an Islamic requirement either. So the motive is disturbing to me. Also, I think that what is going to be the end result when you're describing K-12, 1,000 homes, also a college, also a community center, also nursing home, elderly. My observation is this is to capture an entire Muslim community from cradle to grave. And the point is not that this would somehow diminish America's pluralism. We are home to countless faiths. It is the fact that the motive is to create a closed society, not a parallel society, a closed society which will exact social control over the people that live there. This is the hallmark, not of Islam, but of Islamism.
And I agree with her. I absolutely agree with her. As I said, they're going out of their way to intentionally create a segregated, self-governed city, a state within a state, a sovereignty within a sovereign nation. This cannot happen, cannot be allowed. But you know what they're going to do is they're going to try to use their laws, well, not their laws, but our laws, the United States of America laws. And for those who aren't American and from the United States that listen, I apologize for saying that because I know exactly where my listeners come from. I know you're in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Iceland. I've got hits in Africa, South Africa. I mean, believe me, I have listeners in Asia, all over the world. People listen, and damn, I am humbled because I still can't wrap my head around that. But thank you very much for listening. So I apologize for assuming everybody who listens to this is an American. But to my American audience, the United States audience here, this can't happen. This can't happen. They're going to use our laws against us. They're going to twist everything they can, every word they can, use every nuance, every bit of minutia here to make sure that they get their way. Even going so far as to hire lawyers, officials, politicians to get them on their side because they're going to hire them for, a service. And they're going to use these respected people who are recognizable and known within their communities to argue for letting this happen. And this is just one of the tactics that is used by extreme Islamists. Now, I'm not claiming that everyone involved in this is an extreme Islamist, but this is definitely part of the conqueror's playbook. Here is a clip of one of the founders or people involved in this development sitting down with a couple of his Muslim brothers, talking about these tactics I've just discussed. They are laughing. They are bragging. They are throwing it right in the faces of the citizens of the United States of America.
279-acre land. So like you said, brother, masjid, homes, a total Muslim village. So we're still debating on the name, but it's going to be something Muslim name and a village attached to it, right? The names of the streets, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Tariq bin Ziyad, like all the great conquerors. Like people need to Google those conquerors and know like what are we made of. Yeah, like Google Khalid ibn al-Walid. Google Tariq bin Ziyad, And then we want to have different sections like Andalusia, this, that, like all our past glories, and we want to bring it back. The way what we're doing, brother, like you cannot make it exclusive, like non-Muslims not allowed, kuffar not allowed. What we're doing, there's something called association fee. I don't know what it's called in Dubai. Like your maintenance fee that you pay yearly, cutting the service fee, to cut the grass, to remove the snow and whatnot. So that service fee will put there 75% of the service fee you're paying goes to the masjid.
So they will automatically not want to come.
Automatically, if you are a practicing Christian, I would advise you, why help the Muslims,
Wow. Laughing about it. Going out of the way to let everybody know that they're manipulating people purposely for the purpose of creating this community.
And Muslims do their own thing, right? So this is the way we're going to put the clause. And our attorney already put it there. So we have, brother, think about it. Like a guy comes from Bangladesh, have no idea about anything. Brother, we're putting an application now where we're selecting the names of the streets in the United States of America. We're putting the subdivision laws. Like, hey, this is the law. One of the laws being your yearly contributions, 75% of it goes to support the masjid that's going to be there. We're making these laws. We're putting those laws. It's unbelievable what Allah can do for you.
You know, just blew my mind. You know, they say what's called verbal manifestations. If you keep saying something to someone, they'll become like that. If you keep telling someone they're a villain, they'll become a villain. People get saying, "Bro, these Islamics are taking over." You know what? If you keep saying it, yes, I'm actually gonna do it.
No, but you know what's mad is what you just said, bro. Actually, I think it was mind blowing. You said a guy from Bangladesh comes over to the USA.
Starts naming streets
after Islamic.
It's unbelievable. I cannot sometimes even believe it. And I suggested those names, but other people say, why these? Yeah. Can we have like...
Okay, so admitting... If this isn't part of a plan to conquer, then why go out of the way to name your streets after Islamist conquerors and laugh about the fact that you're naming streets after Islamist conquerors? Does this clip offend or upset you? Because it should. It should. But wait, as they say, there's more. Because I'm going to tell you this. Everyone's going to argue that freedom of religion, freedom of speech, etc. Sure, nobody here in America has not prohibited anyone who is Muslim from practicing their religion. But there are laws against trying to segregate and form your own city or separate community that is segregated and sovereign from the United States. But we're not saying you can't practice your religion. We're saying you can't come into the United States, invade it, and conquer it. That you can't do. Let me put it this way. Okay, maybe this will make sense, because what's funny about this is we get ourselves here. America gets itself here because we let it happen under the guise of tolerance and inclusivity. We have to be tolerant. We have to make everything inclusive. Okay. Funny about that word inclusive. You see, if you go to the Epic Cities website, it's epicccp.com. You're going to find that word inclusive all throughout their website. See, they know how to play the game. They are using our words. They're using our feelings. They're using our tactics against us. Here's some facts from their website. I want to read a few things here. Okay, so let's go to About Us. It says, welcome to Epic City, where we are committed to building a vibrant, multi-generational, and inclusive master plan community. Our vision is rooted in creating a safe and purpose-built environment that fosters growth, connection, and prosperity for all who call Epic City home. Doesn't that sound exactly like the handbook of for a university student, or for a state government agency you work for, or if you work for a school district? Hell, even sounds very similar to something pulled right out of the HR playbook for any corporation. Very, inclusive. Creating a safe place fosters growth, connection. They don't mention anywhere on here where it's all about being a Muslim community, by the way. Our mission, parroting the same exact message, by the way. Welcome to Epic City, where our mission is to build a vibrant and inclusive community that caters to the evolving needs of families. Here we go. The Muslim community. We are dedicated to creating a space where everyone feels welcome, safe, and empowered to grow. Okay, so they finally mentioned Muslim community. I missed that last time. So they did put it there in the mission, but everything else is the same as what I read just previously. Okay, our vision. Deeply rooted in the belief that every individual deserves a safe and purpose-built environment to thrive. They've said safe, I don't know how many times already. They have repeated the words inclusive. They've repeated the words vibrant. Again, all words that have been parroted by, I'm not going to mince any of the words I'm using here, but have been parroted by the Democrat Party, the leftist party, by every university, by every K through 12 school, and by every leftist leaning corporation. Interesting. They know that their way in is by manipulating the bleeding heart liberals of America. And guess what? They're getting away with it. It's happening. Now, if I'm being unreasonable and you think I'm overreacting, let me put it this way, because, maybe I'm being Islamist phobic, right? I hate Muslims. Oh, you're so wrong about them. They're great people. Oh, they never conquered anywhere they go. They don't cause problems anywhere. They're amazing people. And you're just being an Islamophobe. Fine. Maybe I am. But let me put it to you this way. Well, firstly, before I'm going, I will say that I truly believe that Islam is incompatible with Western culture and Western ideals. And if you look throughout the 1400-year history, it has been proven to be so. The 1400-year history of Islam is not compatible with the West. In fact, you'll find more often than not in history that Islam wanted to and has at times conquered the West and ruled it. And they did so by extreme measures. So, getting to my point here. My point being is this. If you think I'm being an Islamophobe here, how would you feel? Because not everybody's religious, not everybody's Christian, but how would you feel if the Catholic Church decided, what if they decided that, I think it's time to expand our base of operations. The Vatican's been great, but a little small. We need to, the U.S. would be a great place to create a Vatican 2.0. Now, for those who are unaware, the Vatican is a sovereign state or nation within Italy, in Rome. It's its own thing. It's small, tiny. But once you cross over into Vatican City, you are literally crossing into another country. They govern themselves. They have their own rules, their own laws. And they don't really have an army, but they have signed agreements with multiple nations who will protect them in wartime. So they are a completely sovereign nation, a tiny city that became a sovereign nation, that has been a sovereign nation for the sole purpose of the Catholic faith, Catholic Church, and its self-governance of the Catholic faith and religion. Imagine that. Imagine Vatican 2.0, let's say in Idaho. How about Florida? Let's go to Florida. What if they establish one of these in Florida, right? And all of a sudden you have a Catholic community of let's up the ante. Let's say they got 1,000 acres and they created their own community with this giant Vatican right in the middle. I'm talking about like the Vatican governing structure. I don't know what they call it in Vatican City, but it's their federal building. Like it's like their White House, but it's the Vatican. So that's sitting right there. They got a giant Catholic church. They then have their own education system, which is completely separate from the state of Florida, for example. They have their own hospitals. They self-govern themselves. They have their own laws. When you cross into their city, it is now the rule of whatever the Vatican laws are. So how would you feel if that happened? If the Vatican came in, decided to create Vatican 2.0 in Florida, and they were considered actually by nature of what they're trying to do, a sovereign city or nation within Florida, within the United States of America. Would you feel good about that? Would you agree with that? Because I know you wouldn't. And if you don't agree with that, why would you think it's okay for the followers of the Islamic faith to have their own self-governed sovereign community on U.S. soil and Texas? Here's a lady at I think this was like a Texas county board meeting or whatever. She came in with a little information herself from some experiences and what she's seen throughout Texas. But here, listen to this.
Welcome, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
One of the things I realize that people are not pointing out here today is there are lots of other developments exactly like Epic that are popping up all over North Texas. And it appears that they're all connected through their financial arm, which is the Community Capital Partners. So some of the cities, the other cities involved, besides Josephine, where the Epic City is proposed to be built, there's Blue Ridge, Celeste, St. Paul, Aubrey, and Saxe. And then there's been recently announcements in the news of multi-million-dollar expansions in McKinney and Frisco. So I think these are all connected, and I'd like everyone to be aware of that. Another thing is I'd like to direct people to X. On X, there is a lady, her name, she goes by @Amy Meck, M-E-K. She has a ton of information about what's happening. And this is not only happening in Texas, but it's happening in other states as well. I think one of your previous speakers spoke about Patterson, New Jersey. That's spelled with one T. The group took over the New Jersey Town Council. They also took over the Sheriff's Department. They took down the American flag and they've raised the Palestinian flag. And at their press conference, which is on the Amy Meck website, at Amy Meck on X, you can see the news conference, and they are calling that the new capital of Palestine in America. And they're also saying that it is the fourth holiest city in the world. So we need to be aware of these things. This is not just a group that wants to, like people have said before, assimilate. These are self-segregated communities, and they require, according to the contracts, because I've read them, when you buy a lot or you build a home, you have to pay into the mosque and you have to pay into their Islamic schools. Dearborn, Michigan recently passed a law where all public schools have to have halal meals now served. So this is what we're looking at. They're trying to change our culture. And another thing is of course, we talked about earlier the two news press releases, one by Ken Paxton about the Epic City, the Community Capital Partners, the ongoing investigation, and then also Governor Abbott released a news story about looking into the Texas Fair Housing Act. And if I could, I printed these out. I'd like to leave these for each of you to review.
Okay, so that right there, what that lady said, everything she said is actually true. And I forgot to bring up Dearborn, Michigan, which is another area that has been taken over by the Muslim community. Okay. Greg Abbott, though, in Texas, everyone's so concerned. Now, we do have leftists and Democrats who are like, hey, you know what? They have a right to do this. They have a right to practice their religion. Like, no one says they don't. But what they're doing is trying to slow walk their way into taking over an entire state, just as they've been slow walking their way into taking over Michigan. And those aren't the only two states. Just as they slow walked their way into slowly trying to take over New Jersey, they've already taken Patterson. Dearborn, Michigan is pretty much gone. And it sounds like Texas is a hotbed for the Muslim or Islamic takeover. Sounds like there's multiple cities there that are dealing with this issue. But Greg Abbott says, I'm going to put a stop to that. Here's Greg Abbott on X right here. The tip of the iceberg, he says, we are uncovering legal violations by Epic City that go far beyond what people realize. The proposed community will never see the light of day. More to come. Now, he knows that he has to try to do this legally so that he doesn't look like an Islamophobe. But Governor Abbott has launched an investigation into Epic City and its developers. And beyond that, they're going as far as looking into whether or not they had building permits, whether or not they're operating certain services within this Epic City legally. He's trying to go down the legal road here so it doesn't turn into a bigger fiasco. But Governor Abbott is extremely in the right in trying to stop this from continuing. You see, for those who don't realize it and don't see it, Islam is intent on taking over not just the West, but the entire world. Everything will become part of Islam and under Islamic rule. And if we're not careful, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be hearing the call to prayer, and there's nothing you can do about it. You will be a part of their way of doing things, their culture, and you will lose yourself to Sharia law and to their Islamic faith. Well, now, I hope that little segment didn't bum you all out. So I'm going to attempt to do something a little bit lighter to end the show. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play the soothing sounds of the direwolf. That's right, you're listening to direwolf puppies. They've been extinct for well over 10,000 years. And yet, we have a company who is able to bring them back. A genetics and bioengineering company, Colossal Laboratories and Biosciences. A company focused on something that they call, or not they call, it's something that is called de-extinction. And it's the idea that we could bring back and reintroduce certain species that went extinct, or any species for that matter, back into the ecosystems of the world. And it is argued that it's given them another chance, or actually even just rebalancing the ecosystem that was impacted by the extinction of a certain species. Now, here's the thing. I agree with that statement, and this is where I agree with it. I agree that this is a good thing where man was a contributing factor to the extinction of said animal. But the first animal that they bring back from extinction is the direwolf, an animal that was not wiped out because man wiped him out, an animal that went extinct because nature selected them to be extinct through different events that happen, cataclysms, whatever. They evolved into something else. Many claim they evolved into gray wolves. Now, let me put this into perspective. This is an animal that I believe stood about 5 to 7 foot tall at the shoulder. Imagine your dog, if you have a dog, but imagine a dog in general that is 7 foot tall at its shoulder with giant mouth and head and ears and paws and muscles. You see, take a wolf, a gray wolf, which is considered probably the apex wolf in the species, and just amplify that by, 5 times or so. Imagine something like a gray wolf being 5 times bigger. What exactly do we have on the planet at this point that would be able to keep the balance in the ecosystem against a direwolf? Imagine 100 direwolves running around in Yosemite National Park, or any park, any area in the world. They're going to go unchecked. They'll either eat their environment out of self-existence because they'll just destroy and eat everything. Or man will have to wipe them out because they're too much of a nuisance. Either way, is this a good thing? Is this a good thing to take species that were naturally selected to be extinct and bring them back just because we think it would be cool to have said animal exist? Now, on the website, they have mapped a few species. Here's some index of species that they want to de-extinct. They already did the direwolf. The dodo bird. Well, that one is not so bad. It did exist during the time of man. I mean, so the direwolf apparently, but the dodo bird, maybe. There's the Thalcian or Thalcian. I can't pronounce that correctly, but basically it is It is the Tasmanian tiger, is what they call it. Okay, I can even see that one. But woolly mammoth? Do we need to see a woolly mammoth? I mean, really? I mean, what's next? A saber-toothed tiger? Or wait a minute, let's go for the velociraptor. How about the T-Rex? Let's just live out Jurassic Park. Let's do that. But anyway, I am definitely inflecting my own opinions on this, which, I mean, I'm always going to give you my opinion, but maybe I'm speaking for the company is what I'm trying to say. Maybe that's not what Colossal Laboratories is trying to do. But still, we gotta question what's going on with this, right? Here is the chief science officer for Colossal Laboratories, or more appropriately, Colossal Laboratories and Biosciences. And here's a little speech from her.
Colossal's goal is to make extinction a thing of the past, to use the tools of gene editing, genetic engineering, to replace missing components of ecosystems, to help these ecosystems to become more robust and resilient, given the dramatic upheavals that are happening to habitats across the world today. We've launched 3 de-extinction projects: Mammoth, Dodo, and Thylacine, which is also sometimes called the Tasmanian tiger. The choice of these 3 species is purposeful. We have a marsupial mammal, a placental mammal, and a bird. And as we develop the technologies to bring these species back to life, these technologies will have immediate application to helping species pretty much across this animal diversity to survive and adapt in the climates of today. Core to Colossal's mission is this idea of de-extinction. And when most people think of de-extinction, one very specific image comes to mind. But this is not what we're doing. First of all, I'm a scientist, so I have to break down the science a little bit. Dinosaurs went extinct more than 65 million years ago. The oldest DNA that we've recovered so far is somewhere between 1 and 2 million years old, but most DNA degrades away by about 10 or 20,000 years. Dinosaur fossils are rocks, and rocks don't have DNA. It is also not possible to recover DNA from mosquitoes preserved in amber. I've tried it. It doesn't work. Amber, it turns out, is a really poor environment for DNA preservation. It forms in very hot places, which encourages the speeding up of DNA decay. And also it's porous, which means that microbes can get in there and chew up the DNA really quickly, making it disappear. There's no DNA in mosquitoes and amber. There's no DNA in dinosaur fossils. Dinosaur de-extinction is not going to happen. I'm very sorry. Right. Sorry. But this is not the plan. The other thing that the scientists of Jurassic Park did was they took these tiny little short fragments of DNA and then they filled in the missing bits that they could get with frog DNA, which is a weird choice given that even at the time we already knew that birds are dinosaurs, right? But whatever. And then they put the dinosaurs in habitats that they were completely maladapted to and chaos ensued. This is not what we want to do. Instead, what Colossal is doing is rebuilding extinct species for the present day. We will identify these core traits that make these animals unique and important components of their ecosystems. In some cases, we will augment these traits because ecosystems of today are different from the past. And when necessary, we will add additional evolutionary adaptations to these animals. Lots of habitats right now and species are suffering because of introduced diseases or introduced predators. And we can use the tools of genome editing to make these species resistant and resilient.
Okay, so she addresses the Jurassic Park mythos, a movie, a book written to question whether or not we should go down this road. It never claimed to be scientifically accurate, but on the same token or within the same speech, she claims that, well, we can genetically modify these species that we're bringing back to have more resiliency, to be able to adapt better, to become more resistant to prey and predators. You know, isn't that kind of what was addressed in Jurassic Park as well? Especially part 2, 3, 4, I don't know. They tried to do that with the dinosaurs later on. So, I mean, are you guys reliving Jurassic Park? Maybe you can't bring back a dinosaur. Maybe you can. Maybe you're not admitting it. but it kind of sounds like you're modeling the idea off of Michael Crichton's book, Jurassic Park, and definitely chasing the movie, which in the movie itself, Dr. Malcolm, the character Dr. Malcolm, had this to say.
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Here's Dr. Malcolm.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Condors. Condors are on the verge of extinction. If I was to create a flock of condors on this island, you wouldn't have anything to say.
No, hold on. This isn't some species that was obliterated by deforestation or the building of a dam. Dinosaurs had their shot, and nature selected them for extinction.
Hence my argument about the direwolf, the woolly mammoth, and so forth. So is Colossal really any different than the lessons that were taught in Jurassic Park? Are they really trying to benefit the environment and the world by bringing some of these species back? Or are they just really trying to play God? Are they really just trying to show the world what they can do because they can? All right, well, I'll leave that for you to ponder. Please visit worldablaze.podcast.com. Like, subscribe, share the show. Really appreciate everybody who supports the show. And have a great day.
I wanna taste your content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.